was a student in America. My parents had come to drop me, and that's the last time I saw my father.
Okay.
And on return to India, my father actually passed away. He was suffering from cancer. At the time he dropped me, I didn't know about it. So, to be exact, I didn't inherit it in a standard way where he would sort of guide me and hand me over the baton, and then he
Yeah.
would sort of retire. It was I gave my final exam, came back to India, and in the interim period, my mom, who before that was a homemaker, went into the business, and this was a very technically intensive business, making equipments for petroleum refineries and petrochemical plants.
Mm-hmm.
So she still held the fort, not knowing how to run the business, but she just held the fort and did whatever she could in her own limited way. And I owe a lot to her from that perspective. That at least the business was there till I came back, which was a great 4 years, long 4 years. And then I had to, learn everything on the job. And as I would say that experience is the father of knowledge. So that's the only father I had was the experience. I had to go through it all. Yeah.
How old were you back then?
Just came out of college. I was 23 years old. Finished my industrial engineering from University of Houston, and as fresh as one could be, straight from the college, and zero experience. Someone very not qualified for even a job was now asked to head the business basically. Yeah, head the company.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, did you have any mentors that sort of helped you in the transition process?
Yes. So in India, anyone who is a little older than you, we call them uncle, and anyone who's older than you on the lady side, we call them an auntie. So it's somewhat maybe like Africa. And at the time when I was growing up, it was it takes a village to bring up a child kind of a thing. So every uncle and auntie I would who was in business, I would go and sort of knock their doors, ask questions, etc. But I would say a lot of it, I would get conflicting advice. Then you sometimes you just have to figure it out. And then I was a keen reader, so I used to look at self-help books and those kind of things. So I knew that I had to do what I had to do because I was very proud of my father, and I knew that I cannot fail him.
Yeah, so going back, had your father still been around, did you still have it in your mind that you would go back to India, or had you planned a different life for yourself?
Oh, I'm sure had my father been around, he would have not let me come back to India immediately. He would have asked me to get some experience somewhere else. Definitely not in India because going away from home, it does kind of make a man out of a boy when you're not at home. And he
Mhm.
would have asked me to get some more experience in some American company as an intern or whatever, and then eventually join. And he would have started me not from the position I started. I pretty much was planted in the managing director's chair. He would have probably sent me to the factory. He would have had me work with the workmen, and then sort of build my way up over a period of time. Because he always believed in that he did that. Some of my cousins have worked in my company, and they did the same thing. Worked right at the bottom. You get when you work down at the ground level and you get your hands dirty, then as they say that if you have dirty fingernails, then you'll have a clean mind. You have to
Mhm.
go through that journey. I was doing all those things parallelly when I came back because I had to figure out at the bottom and you had to figure out at the top. And so it was all, let's call it multitasking in a different way.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility for a 23-year-old man, and I'm sure it was not easy. So I'm just
No,
curious
it
to
was not easy at
understand.
all. They didn't take me seriously. Some of the workmen would not take me seriously because as a kid I used to visit the factory with my dad, and some of these workers at that time, whom I would also refer to them then as uncle because they were much older than me. And even
Yeah.
though they were workmen, in India we have this: you're a kid, and some of them have lifted me as a baby, and now imagine me going there as a boss. So there was a little bit of a the power equation wasn't exactly as one would imagine. So you got to navigate these, let's call it asymmetrical forces, the dynamics
Mm-hmm.
that come through. One as a boss, one as a sort of, little kid in front of their uncle who has sort of, held you in the hands and stuff like that. So it wasn't so easy actually.
Yeah, and did you get any imposter syndrome along the way?
To be honest with you, imposter syndrome comes with immediate success, and you kind of wonder, like, do I really deserve it? I don't think that I went through the immediate success. I did struggle a lot, and yes, but I did get the imposter syndrome from the standpoint that I'm a kid, and what am I doing here on this chair? To be honest with you, for a very long time, I did not sit on my dad's chair. So while I was in the same room, there was another desk and a chair on which
Mm-hmm.
I sat. Actually, it was actually a meeting table, so there would be about two, three people who could sit whenever a visitor came, and then my dad would obviously get up from his chair and sit on that table as well. So I sat on the side table because I felt that I did not have the aura
Yeah.
to sit on the chair or fill the room. And when people would refer to me as sir, it was very very odd for me. I just couldn't. I was like, and in India, it's you're always referred to as sir. So I would be called Kevin Sir, and
Yeah.
yes. So from that standpoint, I did feel a little bit underage to be called sir. I did feel a little bit unsure to be sitting on the chair, and so there was a little element of that imposter syndrome for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And during all this time, who would you say impacted you the most in terms of giving you a shoulder to lean on when things were so tough?
So three things. The inspiration of my father was there. As a child, when I was growing up, he was a fantastic storyteller. He would put me to bed, and through all those stories that he had told me, because I lost him suddenly, right? The last time I saw him was in America when he came to drop me in the US. So I had not yet actually, it had not sort of sunk into me totally that he's no more. I did not have a proper closure. So I was always sort of overwhelmed, and the memories I had were pretty much childhood memories because I grew up, and then after my 12th grade, which is high school, I was off to USA. So I was really never away from home. And the childhood stories where he used to tell me, and he would always tell the story and ask me, what's the moral of the story? He would never tell me the moral, and he would ask me to guess the moral. And that kind of stuck to me, where I ended up always looking for that why. And I remember what he told me was that if you ask why, if you ask why, you become wise. So that sort of struck me. So in all my business operations, I would always ask why. Why should someone work for me?
Yeah.
Why should someone not leave me if they get a little higher salary? Why should the customer buy from me? Why should the vendor give me a better? So that sort of helped me navigate through. And then of course the sacrifice of my mother, because after my dad passed away, she had some jewelry and all that. She had to sell that because we couldn't afford American education by. So all the insurance money which she got after my dad passed away, she used that to put me through school, including sell off some of her jewelry. A lot of sacrifices. I think God could not be everywhere, therefore He made mothers. Really applies to me. She really took great care of me, and and then of course soon enough I was married as well. And what helped was that I was an engineer, and I was a very
Mhm.
macro guy, and I was looking after the business and trying to bring in the doing marketing and operations and technical and design and engineering and all that. And so by design of my academic background and other things I had to do, my natural Achilles heel was that I was not a finance guy. And
Mhm.
money is the blood in the veins. Basically, it may not be the heart of the matter, but it's definitely the blood in the veins. And so she took care of the finance and accounting side of it. My wife. So
Wow.
that sort of we became a little bit of complementary partners as well in business as we were at home.
Yeah, I'm sure that must have been a great boost. So, did your studying abroad affect your style of leadership, and how did your people back home take it when you maybe made a decision out of the cultural norms due to that exposure that you received?
So you know what, Aisha, that's a very interesting question. Your question is, with that, did I get Americanized, and
Yeah.
did people accept that? To be very honest with you, Christopher Columbus had gone looking for India and instead had discovered America. When I went to America, I actually discovered India, because when I was in India, I thought, wow, America, the place of opportunities and Hollywood and pop music and all those things. India was a very poor country at that time, and so the
Hmm.
gap was very high. between the US and India. And when I went there, I started missing India. I started appreciating India more than I ever did when I was in India. So to a
Mm-hmm.
large extent, I fell in love with the traditions and things like that because I did see some part of America which the Americans don't want to show you. And I then realized that we have some wonderful culture. We have a family, and we have this sort of bonding and stuff like that. I think what America did teach me was a little bit about the dignity of labor, which
Mm-hmm.
is far greater in the Western world. I mean, America in particular, because it has it's supposed to be a classless society from the standpoint that they never had any kings and chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been an aristocratic family in that country, so they have that little bit of a legacy which sort of rubs off on you, where whoever you talk to, you address on a first name basis, and sort of and then when I was in America, I was doing odd jobs as well. So where is the question of me feeling that this job, I'm doing a high end job and someone's doing a low end job? I was mopping, you know
Yeah.
yeah, I was working in a restaurant, and I was mopping the floor at times, and sometimes serving on the table, and sometimes sort of ringing at the register, for the invoice after the customer's eaten. So I've done all kinds of jobs to make my ends meet in America. So all that helped me for sure. I would say that without this part of America, I think I would have been a little incomplete.
Yeah. So definitely the niche you also found yourself in is technical, as you had earlier indicated. Um, Looking at the world and all the I would say cold wars going on and the economic disruptions. How have you been able to uphold the standards in terms of quality despite the disparities and inconsistencies in the market?
Okay, so in order to first of all, let me tell you that there are lots of problems in the world for sure, and for whatever reason there is, it seems that all the roads are leading to India. And today, you've been reading about it that India is doing really well, notwithstanding the fact that the world is in a very bad shape, and therefore we have been very strongly engaged by both the let's call it all the factions want to be friends with India. Everybody wants to invest in India. India has been able to negotiate very cheap oil from Russia. Therefore, we are not suffering from the kind of inflation that most other
Mm-hmm.
countries are having. At the same time, we are enjoying very good relations with the West. Now, how we do that, that's another podcast by itself. But like, I mean, in one line, I would say all the roads lead to India. So from that standpoint, it's not as difficult for Indians in India. There is a very strong sense of renaissance over here. We believe that our time has come, and there is a sense of that. So there's a lot of tailwind, psychological tailwinds happening over here. There's a sense that we are again rising and stuff like that. Uh, to complete my story, in particular, so I then grew my business up to a point where I got an unsolicited offer from a Swedish multinational listed on Nasdaq. And after they bought my company, I worked with them for a few years, and then, which is known as a hand-holding period. And then I came out. I came out in the middle of COVID. I got my farewell on Zoom because everything was shut. Yeah, but then after that, I was wondering what I should do. So there are several things which are happening. I have two boys. One guy has set up his restaurant. I'm helping him a little bit with that. I'm still sort of guiding him. The second one is in the ESG space. And
Mm.
for my interest, after having sold the business, I am basically interested in giving back to the society. So to a large extent, I work with entrepreneurs. And I'm not talking about startup entrepreneurs. I'm talking about those entrepreneurs who are already in business and have a little bit of a mature business from the standpoint that they have at least completed one cycle, which is about 7 or 8 years, where they have seen everything. And then I help them to grow to the next level. So I am basically what I call myself as a peer thought strategist. And I call myself a peer thought strategist is because I have been a businessman before. So I talk on a peer to peer basis, and try to understand what their mind is. I'm not here to advise them, but I would not like to be advised when I was running my business. So I try to understand their mind, and that's where the thought comes in. And then, based on what is their value and vision, I try to sort of align with them, and we have a good conversation, and we open up some. things and help them to go to the next level. So that's what it is. So I'm a business coach, life coach, to
Okay.
the owner entrepreneur, as well as I try to bring about some team alliance with the leadership, the managers and those kind of that level. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your passion for entrepreneurship. And what are some of the lessons you've picked along the way as a business coach?
Oh, as a business coach, okay. So whoever you talk to, uh, I do not know about the beauty pageants in Africa, but in the beauty pageants, India is very famous. To me, after some time, they all look the same and they all tend to give the same answer. They are all beautiful. There's no discussion. That's why they are there, and they're all giving cliched answers that they all want to become, Mother Teresa, but they end
Yes.
up going in Bollywood or whatever have you. But
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, I mean, that's on the lighter vein. But all the businesses, all the problems, if you see, there's a connecting thread between all the beads, if I can say. Each and every business, they say, well, my business is very unique. We have this particular problem. It's very specific to my industry. It's the same thing to all industry. They all sound the same. They
Mm-hmm.
just think that they are the chosen ones, and therefore they have to go through all the suffering. So one of the things is, what I tell people is that, you know what, thank God there's business. Then thank God, because that's the second worst thing you can do. The worst
Mm-hmm.
thing you can do is to work for someone which you don't like to do, but you are compelled to do. So here you do not complain too much. At least it's your own business,
Yeah.
and enjoy the business. There's hardships in there. That's there to make you strong, and you can only grow through what you go through. And you better go through all these things, and you learn on the job. Just make sure that you have proper values and vision, and then the rest of the thing is, just keep going, and you will build that emotional stamina to
Mm-hmm.
withstand all these other pressures. And if you really must complain, then go ahead, shut your business, and go and do a job. You don't want to do that, then don't complain and enjoy this, basically. That's what I would tell someone.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice for various business owners in different niches. So as we wrap up, what advice would you give? I know you said you work with established entrepreneurs, but then again, in this show, we are trying to inspire people who are looking at starting, but for one reason or another, they're seeing hurdles, or they think it's not the right time, or they don't have the resources. What advice would you give to that someone on the fence?
There is no such thing as not the right time. My son used to tell me that, so I understand where they are coming from. He said, Dad, it's
Mhm.
not the right time to open a restaurant, because that was the time where COVID was there, and there was a little bit of
Lockdown.
lockdown. There was restricted timing. There was social distancing, so people could sit only in alternate chairs and everything. And I used to say that, you know what, if you were to learn how to drive a car, make sure you drive the biggest, fattest, ugliest car. And if you can drive that car with a stick shift, changing gears and everything, then these new age modern cars with all the automatic gears and cruise control and other things will come very easy. So there's never a good time. If it's a hard time, start then, because eventually you will anyways have a hard time. So it's good to, just get going and get started wherever you are. There's never a very perfect moment. Anyways, the business is about an infinite game. So what are you talking about? It's a good time right now. How long is a good time going to last? The business is always going to go up and down. So it's anyways going to meet you sometime in future. So this is
Yeah.
what I would like to say. To startups, I would like to in particularly say is that one of the issues I have is a lot of these startups, they start something to sell the business. And I always tell them that, really speaking, you know what, the stories you hear in the media are the stories that are very successful and far and few. 99% of them didn't make it. It's just the few that made it, and that's why it sounds very big and it sounds very interesting. But you cannot sell something which you didn't own. So don't run
Yeah.
your business. You must live in your business. Don't live in it like a rented home. You need to own the business, run the business for running the business, and not for selling the business. Otherwise, you are really distracted. You're doing injustice to the business, to all the stakeholders, and most of all to yourself. So this is what
Yeah.
I would say, especially to startups. That's why I told you in the beginning that I have a little bit of a issue with startups, because the startups have not seen the whole journey, and therefore
Yeah.
they need to see the journey to appreciate that there's so much of learning in the business, there's so much to give to the business, and the business is a slave. If you give it, it gives back to you.
Yeah.
Whatever
For
orders
sure.
you give it, it gives it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah.